And as well, I'll let there. So being as we're just starting the recording, I'll say my name again. Hi, I'm Teresa Kavanagh, City Councillor. So I'll let our participants introduce themselves. Pat Scrimgeour will introduce his team. He's the manager and in charge of scheduling, and we'll get started. So Pat, I'll pass it on to you to do your presentation, and then we'll do questions right after on transit. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor. Thanks everyone for being here. I'll put the presentation up on my screen in a moment. I'll just introduce some of my colleagues who are here with me. Going across the screen, I see Damon Berlin, Bob Radmore, Campbell Inwood, Rosanna Baggs, Michael Oram, and a minute ago, Erica Springate. They're here to help me answer any questions you might have about transit service in your area now that your access to Moody Station has been lost. So what I'll do is I'll just show a presentation that brings us all to the same understanding. Did I forget to say Bob Radmore? Well, Bob Radmore's here too. Some of this, some of you will know some of this, many of you will know some of this, some of you will know all of this, but by going through a few pages, we'll make sure that we have a common foundation for our discussions and the questions you'll ask. So I'm just going to share this screen, and could somebody do me a favor and let me know when you can see it okay?
Looks good.
Okay. Thank you. So what the councillors invited us here to talk with you about this evening is the effects that the stage 2 construction is having on the transit service in your neighborhood. I'll start with this, just a brief overview of what the work is that's going on. We're building Moody Station, which will look generally like you see in that image on the right-hand side. It'll be the western terminus of the O train with connections to all sorts of locations from there. The work that's going on right now is, you'll have seen the work. There's bridge work going on. There's works to realign the road. And there's all the other supporting work that goes on that's required to turn the transitway, the former transitway, into the future light rail line. In your neighborhood, there's two primary bus routes, the Route 58 and the Route 258, 58 which runs 7 days a week, and 258 which runs in addition to that in rush hours. The 258 in rush hours goes directly to Tunney's Pasture Station, where transfers can normally be made to O Train Line 1. Obviously, we're not in that circumstance right now, but we're working, of course, to get that train back in operation safely as quickly as possible. The map on the right shows what you're all very familiar with, the bus stops in your neighborhood. And the numbers there are just the numbers that we use to keep track of the bus stops. And I think those are the numbers that you phone to get the time of the next bus that's coming. Route 58, that's the one that runs 7 days a week. And what we'll show here is in the direction from Crystal Bay. Crystal Bay is what we're calling the point where the buses are temporarily turning around over by the DND. Going to Lincoln Fields, going east. You can see there the first trip in the morning, Monday to Friday, is at 6:18. And then during the morning, busiest hour of the morning, it runs every 15 minutes. The rest of the morning, it runs every 30 minutes. Every 30 minutes through the afternoon, evening, every hour into the late evening, with the last trip at 11:16 at night. On weekends, it starts at 8:55 in the morning. On Saturday, ends at 11:02 at night. On Sundays, the first trip in the morning is at 9:50. And the last one is the last one that goes through your neighborhood at 6:50 p.m. It says 30-minute service, but I don't believe that's right. I think we're running once an hour service on weekends. Yeah. So I apologize for that mistake. In the other direction, leaving Lincoln Fields and going.
Someone's at the front door.
Someone's at the front door, apparently. So my doorbell just rang. Going to Crystal Bay through Crystal Beach, westbound, you see the first trip leaving Lincoln Fields at 6:09 in the morning. That same 30-minute frequency through the day, but 15-minute service during the busiest hour of the afternoon. Last trip at 10:34 at night. And then the time on Saturday is from 8:40 in the morning until 11:30 in the evening, and from 9:35 in the morning on Sundays until 7:16. And again, that should be 60 minutes, not 30-minute service.
I'll just jump in, Pat. We did just recently improve frequency to 30 minutes on weekends on the 58, following the previous meeting with Councillor Kavanagh.
Oh, I didn't think that had occurred. Okay, I'm sorry about that. Thanks, Erica. The Route 258 runs every half hour in the morning from Crystal Bay through Crystal Beach, and then on the from Bayshore on the Transitway directly to Tiny's Pasture Station from 5:54 in the morning until 8:39 in the morning, and then comes back west in the afternoon from Tiny's Pasture. First trip at 2:50 and the last trip at 6:22. So that's the service we have now. And the next slide shows that how these two, they don't do it perfectly, but how they mesh together to provide, they sort of alternate. You can see in the morning on the left-hand side, there's a 258, then a 58, then a 258, then a 58. So even though they're running every half hour, every 15 minutes at the busiest times, they don't blend together perfectly every 15 or 10 minutes, but there is, you can see the combined through the morning, there's quite a number of trips, and in the afternoon, similarly, there's a trip every few minutes from Bayshore Station. And what that's to show is just that there's during rush hours, there's a lot of opportunities to travel at the times that work for most people. Currently, with the reduced employment, the reduced on-site employment, and the reduced number of people going to schools, going to universities at least, because of the pandemic, our ridership is less than half of what it would normally be. And as a result, there is plenty of space on these trips. So it's not a question of overcrowding, it's more a question of convenience and whether the trips are going to the right places at the right times. Obviously, outside the rush hours, the service doesn't run as frequently, doesn't need to run as frequently, but with the loss of access to Moody Station, we know that that brings more challenges to you and your neighbors. Once the extension is built, this will be part of line 3. Right now we have line 1 and line 2. This will be line 3. You can see it on the map on the right-hand side as the gold line extending from Trim in the east, branching off from the red line at Lincoln Fields and running as far as Moody. And that's the new gold line, the new line 3, which will start when the construction is finished. Once that's done, Moody will be...
It's held hot.
Somebody's got a microphone on. Okay. That will be the west end of the line until there's further extensions west. And so the new Moody Station will be the western terminus, and bus routes will be linked to Moody Station for easy bus to train, train to bus connections, but also bus to bus connections, which will give you and people in your area a few more easy travel choices than you have now. From Moody Station, the diagram at the bottom left shows that there'll be buses heading for the DND Carling campus, Shirley's. Now I'm unmuted. Okay. Can you hear me okay? I've got a message on the screen saying I'm muted still.
No, you're not.
Oh, good. Thank you. So we're ready there as whatever the DND plans become for how they develop their employment at the Carling campus, their Carling campus at Shirley's Bay and other locations in that area. Buses from Moody Station, of course, will be using the highway to go west and come from the west to all kinds of places in Canada and Stittsville, and also improved connections from Moody Station on Moody Drive south into Bell's Corners and beyond. The timeline, as you know, the old Moody Station closed at the beginning of September, and the connections that used to be made for people coming from the east and west going to places like the DND campus moved up to the highway intersection. But we certainly recognize that that's not easily accessible, and we're not recommending, we're not asking anyone from your neighborhood to make that long and convoluted walk to the highway intersection. The primary thing we want to do is make sure that the service on routes 58 and 258 in your neighborhood is meeting your needs. With the construction going on for the next 4 years or so, we're currently expecting O Train Line 3 to open in 2025. As I mentioned, when that happens, the new Moody Station becomes the main connection point for routes from Kavanagh, Stittsville. There's a way to get to Barhaven from there. It's not easy. And Crystal Beach. There's we will need to carry out some consultation through the councillor's office and whatever way works best in that time. So Erica and her team will be working on the new route structure over the months and years to come. And we're currently thinking we'll be speaking to the councillor more about possible route changes during 2023, so that we're not deciding too early, but we still got time once we've made those decisions to make all the final arrangements, get the scheduling, get the signage made up. But it's not going to be, there's not a lot of, there's scope for change. There's not going to need to be a lot of question about some parts of it. The big routes that come in from Kavanagh and Stittsville, like 61, 62, 63, 64, that now go to Tenny's Pasture, they're going to go to Moody. The north-south service that comes from Bell's Corners, we want to run more of that. That'll be one of the things. Improving connections from your neighborhood to Bell's Corners, that's a big thing that we'll be able to talk about during that consultation. And running whatever frequent service is required for the employment levels and the transit ridership that exists to DND at that time. It'll be a big part of what goes on at Moody Station. It's not a long bus route probably, but we might have to run a very frequent service from Moody Station, the new Moody Station, to the DND offices. So I went the wrong way. That's the end of the slides I have. So what I'll do is I'll turn it back to Councillor Kavanagh. And Councillor, if you've got questions that you need to ask me, things to clarifying, anything I didn't make clear or something that that you'd like to know more about, I'm happy to answer that. And then I'll turn it over to you to organize the rest of the evening.
No, thank you, Pat. I'll go straight to the questions from residents so that we can give them their time. I appreciate very much that you had presentation all set up for us. The first question is related to timing of notification of the closure of Moody Station rather than on bus schedules. And why was a meeting not called before the Moody Station? I know that we did get 1 month notice and it was August, and frankly, it was difficult, but I see the point, and your point is taken, that it would be better to have notice ahead of time for the community. So, so that's acknowledged. Okay, please put things in the form of a question so that I can ask a question. So why 1 month? All right, we've got that. How do buses from Canada turn around at Moody? Can you elaborate?
In the new Moody Station, once it's built and open in 2025, but we'll have a platform that runs parallel to Corkstown Road, and it'll be on the north side of the train tracks and on the south side, south of Corkstown. So the buses will come into that from the west, will drop off and pick up their customers on a platform that's on the south side that leads directly onto the north platform of the train station. and then the buses will, make a 180-degree turn at the east end of the station and loop back and head west in the parallel to Corkstown Road, and then we'll go out onto Moody and back to the highway. Currently, though, we don't have buses turning around. We did have some buses turning around at Moody Station until September, but currently there's no buses that end their trip at Moody Station.
Okay, thank you. Why extend the 57 to D&D when no one rides it?
Well, right now, obviously, ridership to and from the federal offices is low because of the pandemic. What the temporary extension of the 57 to the D&D, where we call it Crystal Bay, where it turns around, that's in order to allow connections to get to the D&D from the buses that are coming from Kavanagh and Stittsville. So obviously ridership is low right now, but when everyone's back at the office, someone who's coming from anywhere in Kavanagh, anywhere in Stittsville will be able to get off their bus at the highway intersection, cross over and catch a bus going north on Moody that will take them to their work location. And then in the afternoon, they'll leave their workplace at the DND, ride south to the north side of the highway interchange, and catch their westbound bus there going back to Kavanagh or Stittsville.
Thank you. Just another question about community consultation back in July. Why was this request not fulfilled or ignored?
I think we had a lot of discussion, and the question was, what's the right way to get the word to people? Damon and his colleagues spend a lot of time figuring out answers to that question, working with councillors all across the city. In this area, this is your station, Moody Station, is one of the first to close for this part of O-Train construction. And I think we learn lessons from everything we do, and all the feedback we get from you will give us advice on how we can best engage with customers across the city as more and more stations need to close and then reopen later.
Thank you, Pat. And I certainly feel that way, that it is lessons learned, and I apologize to the community that this did not happen. And certainly the community deserved to have information ahead of time. Next question is, when can we expect to see electric buses on these routes?
So what the City Council has decided and approved in the middle of this year, so sort of June, is that over the next 15 years, all buses will be purchased as electric buses. We've got our first 4 coming through this fall. 3 of them are here now, 1 more to come, and then once they're through all their technical testing and preparation, they'll start to go into service, and we'll get experience with them. With the decision of council to buy electric buses only, going forward from here, with the federal funding that's allowed this to happen, because these are very expensive buses. And so that what the federal funding is doing is they're lending us money at a very low interest rate to buy the buses and repay that loan with the savings, the money that we don't need to spend on diesel fuel and on some aspects of maintenance over the 15-year life of the bus. So we're expecting, we're making a recommendation to council in this year's budget to buy electric buses for our fleet replacement next year. There are still some technical hurdles for the higher capacity buses. We need to get articulated buses, double-decker buses, and small Transpo buses that meet our operational needs here in Ottawa. But the 40-foot buses, that has happened. So the transition will take 15 years, because that's the life of a bus. So it takes that many years to cycle every bus through. But you'll start to see more and more electric buses over the years to come.
Okay, thank you. Why not extend the 57 to loop through the community, as it would give a link to Bell's Corners?
That's a good question. I think we've seen that there's, the 57 was extended primarily for the reason of providing the connection to the DND. Service in the neighborhood connecting to Bayshore Station is primarily provided by the 58 and the 258. Our judgment was that the number of people from your neighborhood traveling to Bell's Corners every day was not large enough to dedicate resources specifically to that. In addition, these temporary extensions, the arrangements like the 57 going to DND, are there. They're funded temporarily. They're funded out of the project capital budget to build the light rail line and to make all the temporary arrangements while the construction's occurring. So we wouldn't want to put something in that's funded by capital temporarily, knowing that we would have to take it away later. But primarily, from what we know of the number of people traveling between those two areas, it would be almost overkill. It's a lot of city money being spent on something that only a small number of people would use. I know it's been difficult since the decisions of council 10 years ago to reduce funding for transit, and that was when the old Route 166 ended. I know it's been sometimes it's difficult to make a connection at Bayshore between the buses from your neighborhood and the buses going to Bell's Corners. One of the things we're thinking of, and Erica's team is working on, is what can we make the ability in the future, once the new station's open, so that it's possible from your neighborhood to make a connection to Bell's Corners, either at Bayshore or at the new Moody station.
Okay, and certainly I think that we should look at these things again in the future. If people are wanting this service, I've heard this many times. I guess it's trying to see if the numbers warrant, and I realize that Bell's Corners is a major shopping area for the community. Question, I'm curious to know if the bus loop at Moody will be a double lane road.
It's certainly our design standard is that any transit way, any exclusive road always has a way for a bus to pass another bus. So I'm expecting it to not have any of those choke points in it where any bus that stopped to drop people off or broken down for any reason would stop other buses from passing. I know that there's a lot of design challenges in a narrow space between the highway and the train tracks on the south side and the NCC land where Abbott Point of Care is on the north side. I know that that's very squeezed. I don't know the details of what the current version of the bus roadway design is. Campbell or Damon, both who are on this call, might know that answer.
Yeah, I assume they're talking about the bus area, not the road, not Corkstown Road, which is the next question, which I can answer, or one of the staff. Connie, can you let Campbell speak?
So yeah, we have worked with both the NCC and the Abbott Point of Care facility to work through the land acquisition required to establish bidirectional traffic on Corkstown Road. And so while I have not seen the design myself yet, I know that a variation to the contract to establish that has been worked on. I don't know if the ink is dry on it, but without a doubt, that is 100% what we're working towards, is to maintain two-way traffic between Moody and the Crystal Beach community.
Yep. Yes, I can confirm that that's the case. we worked hard for we worked hard for that, and it was negotiations with Abbott as well as the NCC, and then back and forth, and it finally it happened. Thank you, Campbell.
Thanks. And Rosanna, who's on this call, says we're just finalizing the paperwork to get the land exchange and the contract to the builder.
Yeah. So I think that answers Michael's question, because I think Damon was showing you an old picture, because this is really new.
Yeah, the renderings don't get updated as plans change so quickly, but that was an original rendering as people were asking how that would look. So it was the only bird's eye perspective that we currently have. I do apologize about the 3-year-old who's helping me here.
Okay. Are there any plans to have a park and ride at Moody Station? No, but you can elaborate, Pat.
Just no. There were options that were looked at the request of council as the project was being defined several years ago, and the eventual decision was that no, the park and rides would be maintained at their current location at Terry Fox and at Eagleson and Canada.
And keep in mind, this is similar to Tunney's Pasture. You can't park and ride there. That was the end of the line for stage 1. So similar idea.
As Pat did say, a lot of areas were looked at. As we were looking at the location for Moody Station, we played with it at different configurations at the intersection, looked at places where we could also have a parking lot. And as said, there was not the available space, but it was decided that Eagleson would be the primary park and ride for it.
Yeah, thank you. How will you measure need for connection between Crystal Beach Lakeview with the Queensway Carleton Hospital and Bell's Corners?
So there's 3 main sources of information. One is we can look at how many people are using the service now. We can get some idea by those people who are traveling with Presto cards, where they tap their Presto card in the morning versus where they tap it in the afternoon, and make an interpolation that that's probably where they're traveling between. We also have looked at the ridership on the previous trips that ran. We had some special trips that were extensions of the route through your neighborhood over to Bell's Corners at certain times of the day. We also know how many people are traveling from your neighborhood to and from Bell High School, and that's also part of the discussion. But the other thing is another 2 things we can do, especially when it comes to dealing with the hospital, is we can ask them if they can share the home locations. We don't need any personal information, just the home postal codes of where people are traveling from who work at their location, and we can get an idea of how many people from your neighborhood or adjoining areas are traveling to the hospital. We also the city participates with the province and the province of Quebec and the Ville de Gatineau in a travel survey that's done every few years, where a percentage of people all across the region answer a travel survey about where their travel needs are. Right now, we're in a difficult circumstance. It's chronologically, it's time to update that survey, but right now with the pandemic in place, we don't believe that the travel patterns that people are following right now are much to plan the future on. So we're waiting for the more people to come back to work before we do those travel surveys again. So these are some of the data sources that we use, and it's Erica's team that interprets those data and finds the recommendations. I will say, however, one of the things that sometimes makes it easier is when we can make that connection without an additional cost. For instance, if the bus that goes through your neighborhood ends at the New Moody Station and a bus from Bell's Corners ends at the New Moody Station, and we can align those arrival and departure times so it's just an easy transfer between the 2, then it's no longer a question of the numbers justifying a cost, because we don't have to put another bus on the road or another 2 buses on the road and employ any more people to drive them. We can do it with the existing pool of buses and staff that we have at that time, and we can do good things at a lower cost or at a zero cost.
Thank you. Rick, your question is on the LRT extension. We're dealing with the transit service tonight, but I'll see if anyone can answer it. There was an EPR passed, which seems to be not being used for the LRT extension. Why?
I don't know, Damon. Do you know what I don't know what an EPR is. So
Is that an environmental protection?
It's the EA that was done for the Moody extension. Rick, I feel like we do talk about this quite often. I feel like you've asked and I feel like it's been answered, but if there's anything that hasn't, I encourage you to send an email to me. You can CC Councillor Kavanagh. You can even CC Pat Scrimgeour. We'll be
Okay.
sure to get you your
But
answers.
this
Thank
meeting
you.
was set up for transit, so we'll try and deal with that. And thank you. Kate is asking, sorry, don't worry about it, Kate. You can ask another question. Do the buses come in eastbound on an OC Transpo only road and then leave westbound on Corkstown?
that's one of the things that's still being worked on in the design. Campbell, Damon, Rosanna, I don't know if you can say whether that's locked down yet. We're certainly trying to minimize conflict between bus operation and auto traffic in that area.
So the plan remains to have buses coming into the station and out of the station via the Moody and Corkstown intersection. That is the primary route. We've worked very hard to protect for a possibility to continue to use the eastbound ramp into the station that exists today. However, when we do that, it effectively will truncate the available platform space for buses within that bus loop. And so, as of right now, that remains sort of the route we're protecting for as a contingency should we end up with any sort of disruption on the primary route into the station, which will be via Corkstown.
And thanks, Campbell. Just to clarify one more thing, we're not expecting any buses to be operating on the part of Corkstown Road east of the station, so east of the Little Creek, as far over as Crystal Beach. In that zone, we're not expecting to operate any buses at all.
Okay, so in and out on Corkstown.
In and out through the Corkstown and Moody intersection.
Okay, great, thank you. There had been a thought of paid parking at Moody on the Abbott parking lot. And no, it's not being considered, but I don't know if anyone wants to elaborate on that.
It's not part of the project. And I believe, but I'm not authoritative on this at all. I believe it's also because the Abbott land is all owned by the federal government. I believe it's counter to federal NCC policies to have parking or paid parking in that area.
Okay. Yeah, no, it was talked about and dismissed. And of course that is Abbott's area, so would have been some negotiations going on that. I think it would have just complicated things even more. In planning, has there been any switch in thinking from just getting people to and from work to thinking about getting people to their 15-minute neighborhoods?
Yes, there's we're always trying to build a transit system that allows people to live their life without needing to own a car, to allow people to live their life just as well without a car as those people who do have a car. And that's a prime thing that is always something that's behind every decision we make, both in doing large projects like building the light rail line and smaller projects like changing a local bus route. different neighborhoods have people who are in different circumstances. They work in different places. They have different, sizes of families. They have different income levels, and people make their own choices of whether they're going to own a car, own 2 cars, use the car, not use a car. Our biggest destination remains downtown, and our busiest time of day remains rush hours. We think that both of those will still be the case after the pandemic fades from memory. But we do always want to build more of a transit habit, or at least support people as they make their own transit choices for travel at all times of the day.
Thank you. We've just been dealing with the official plan for 3 days. And of course, the 15-minute neighborhood was talked about. One of the ways of getting to 15-minute neighborhoods was intensification, because then you can have more services close by, and that's sort of for everything. Services are not going to be close to when there's not a large number of people. They tend to come when there's a larger number of people. And that includes the transit service, which has been mentioned, that when you have more people using it, then it's likely to stay. So that's part of it. And Michael's asking, are there any concerns about noise produced by the LRT? Is there a requirement to install noise shields along the transitway that passes through Lakeview Community? Well, I'll pass that question on to Damon. Obviously, it's not your question, Pat.
We are not adding any noise walls to this area as part of the Stage 2 project.
Okay.
It is seen through the modeling. I can say that the Highway 417 is louder than the operation of the trains. And so there would be a very small increase in dBA. A way that they classify this in sound engineering is imperceptible, not something that the human ear can identify. So that's not seen as a requirement to construct. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good question. Appreciate it. Okay, I'm just seeing where I am. Regarding transit, is there going to be a review about running basically empty buses during rush hour?
Yes, that review goes on continuously. One of the things that happened this year is that we reduced, we hope temporarily, we called it a temporary suspension of service on a number of routes, and reduced service on a number of routes just to reduce costs during the pandemic, with ridership being so low as it was at the time. It's a little higher now. We're hoping that ridership can get back up soon, that we'll be ready to put some buses back on the road at the times that people are traveling.
Thank you. With buses using Corkstown Moody intersection, will this necessitate extra buses only lane in both roads near the intersection? That would be a Campbell question.
Sounds like a Campbell question.
Feels like one for me, yes. And so, no, there will not be additional bus-only lanes added. And so the primary way that buses are going to be getting to Corkstown, such that they can head east into the station, is via the northbound right turn lane to turn right onto Corkstown Road. And so that lane is already, quite freely flowing. It's very long. There's no benefit that really could be achieved to transit service times by constructing an additional lane. And so, of course, we don't like to overbuild the roads, and consequently, if there's no benefit to be had for the buses, we don't go about doing that. Conversely, coming out westbound on Corkstown Road, currently there's just sort of a wide lane that feels like a bit of a no man's land. And so that is going to be, when the intersection is redone, built as a separate westbound left turn lane from the through and the right turn movement. So that will add some additional capacity to the intersection, which will, of course, facilitate the best possible OC Transpo service times, and that's the goal there.
Okay. Thank you. Is it possible to reassess noise level in the field?
I'm just curious by that question. I think we're meaning when the train's in operation, if we feel like it's too loud, can we have noise readings done? The answer is yes. That did happen in stage 1 in some areas in between Bayview and Tunney's pasture. I will say, and I do see there's a few questions about noise that are popping up here. So I might just do a bit here if that's okay with you, Councillor.
Mhm.
The trains
Sure.
are quieter than buses. The trains are quieter than the highway. I'm not a sound engineer, Rick. I know you're not either, but this is what I've learned from talking with sound engineers. Let's call, for example, the average, the dBA of Highway 417, we'll call it, and this is just a made up number, 80. Okay. And then you identify that the trains are going to run at a made up number, 60. Well, you don't add 60 to 80 to get your dBA. That it's a fractional amount that it increases by. And that's why I do not believe, and again, I'm not a sound engineer, but having spoken to them, that this will be an issue. The highway, if that's an issue, then that is an issue for the MTO. Our trains are quieter than the highway. Our trains are quieter than the buses. If you notice problems with the buses now, and I'm not speaking for you, I'm asking, then that might be something worth examining. Is that helpful?
Okay. Thank you. Okay, well, that's a conversation of its own on the noise level. There is walls up right now for the highway. So anyway, it's another discussion that we can have. Is there any more questions on transit? No further questions? Okay. Well, I appreciate everyone coming out tonight, and I appreciate Pat, you bringing your team out and preparing the information ahead of time so that people can see it. Of course, we'll put the information up on our website along with this meeting, so that it's available to everyone. Did I see any further questions? It looked like it was okay, that's a good question, actually, Rick. Any plans to put transit along Carling? And of course, you're talking about the west end of Carling, because there's certainly lots of transit on the length of Carling.
So the one section of Carling that doesn't have any transit service on it, doesn't have bus service on it, is the section between Crystal Beach and Corkstown. Just that small, 3, 4, 6 blocks along there.
To Moody. Regular transit between Moody and say Crystal Beach Drive.
That's where Route 258 and 58 run today.
Okay, so
and then east of Corkstown Road, they're back on. So we just bring those buses through the neighborhood and have for way longer than I remember. That's the way we follow the buses. They come through your neighborhood along Crystal Beach Drive and then Corkstown Road to be closest to everybody. So they don't run on that, depending on how you define whatever length of that 1 kilometer or 5 blocks or whatever it is of Carling. Yeah. So we don't have plans there. If there were ever, more people within a short walking distance of Carling than there were along the current route, then that might be something we would bring through a councillor to discuss with the community. But that's not the case today. On the north side, there's only recreational uses on the north side of Carling on that. that stretch right now.
Oh, I think what precipitated that is the fact that we are seeing development applications coming on Carling. The Villa Lucia is going to be torn down, and there's a building going up. So this will increase the population. And there could be more. I don't have any applications at this point,
Yeah.
but I think that's probably what the thinking is. And at this time, we don't know if they're likely to use transit, because it doesn't seem like it's a strong case for them to use transit, which is actually a concern in terms of encouraging more cars. So I think that it is something to look at in the future if this trend continues. So and just another piece of the puzzle of making sure they're looped in, because there could be as many people in that building as there is in an entire neighborhood, which will be new for this area. They're asking about Moody LRT trench to be the same depth as the Pinecrest station depth.
I've sent Lucas a message and given him my work email address, so we can talk about all these construction related issues and design related issues offline and not take any more of Pat's time.
Okay.
Thanks, Lucas.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it. As we said, if you have any more questions, you're not sure who to send them to us. But if it's about the LRT construction, you can send them directly to Damon, and we'll be happy to be the traffic coordinator on any other questions you have. I thank you all for giving up your evening to come out, and appreciate the questions. Very good questions, and realize that we do need to look at how we do things in terms of notifying people. It shouldn't be lessons learned. We should do better in terms of giving people information ahead of time and consult with the community. I get that.
Can I ask a question, Councillor?
Sure.
No disagreement about consulting with the community. That's what we spend most of our time doing. But what I am curious about, maybe a straw poll, what do people feel is an appropriate notification time? I'm always confused because it does tend to change based on the community and the individual. And I don't feel like anyone's ever said we or OC's ever done it right, but I also don't know what was right.
Okay. I'm sure we'll hear that answer. But anyway, I appreciate it that you're asking that. And if anyone has an answer, please contact us. Okay, enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you again.
Councillor. Thank you, everybody, for being here.
Yeah, thank you, Pat. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Campbell, Damon, Rosanna, everybody, Erica.
Good night.
Thank you,
Thank you.
community.
Bye now.